The X-Flies, an X-Files fanfiction by someone who has only seen a handful of episodes and a loose grasp on straight intimacy, by Xander Jeanneret. Thanks to Lauren himself for the beta read and cover design suggestions, and to the fan arrays for community support. All characters copyright of 1013 Productions and Chris Carter. No financial gain was made from this fan work. X-Files Office, FBI Basement, February 1995. Dr. Dana Scully let out a deep, soulful sigh as she sat down at her desk. The paperwork was beginning to pile up, and her partner was nowhere to be found. With a brief lick of her thumb for grip, she rifled through the latest report sheets. The entire Federal Bureau of Investigation tended to take her department as a joke, and so the reports that came in usually dealt with things that couldn't be explained. Whether or not they were legitimate claims of actual unexplainable phenomena was largely her job to disprove. After all, she was a highly educated medical doctor and scientist. This fact made several of these reports a bit depressing. She paused to take a closer look at one of the papers, marked with a large X red stamp, only to read, "Image of Jesus Christ found burned into a piece of toast. Reported from Cheyenne, Wyoming, December 25th, 1994. The white borders of the Polaroid photo paper clipped to the report framed a square piece of bread. The char marks from a toaster gave the vague impression of a human face, though it failed to depict any religious iconography in Scully's eyes. "Finding holy figures in gluten is a time-honored tradition," a soft, deep voice crooned from over her shoulder. Fox Mulder, her partner in the department, held his position crouched over her shoulder and barely flinched when Scully whipped around in surprise, splashing his chiseled face with her bright red fuck-off bob. "Mulder," she said, setting the reports back onto a sleek metallic desk. "You need to stop sneaking up on me. I nearly shat myself." "Always the lady," he said through a devilish grin. "Why should we be ashamed of our biological processes? If anything, you should be thanking me for giving you an honest warning. The fact that I'm a woman has nothing to do with how I should behave." Scully turned back towards her desk and shook the boxy mouse to wake the large CRT monitor. The toasters flying through space with angelic wings flickered away, revealing the IBM Web Explorer window underneath. "You're totally right. My mistake. Incoming," Mulder warned, leaning in closer to read the pixelated text. Scully allowed herself to briefly take in the scent that wafted from him, a familiar mix of dark, rich coffee and the woody musk of his cologne. There was another scent as well, the very faint smell of cigarette smoke. "Whoa, you found them," Mulder exclaimed, breaking Scully's scent journey. "That has to be proof." The website displayed a title of Alien Existence, complete with slightly fuzzy photos that were nearly finished loading. Something about the images felt strangely familiar to Scully. A capsule-shaped organism, partially sliced open in the image to reveal a jumbled series of tubular organs, segmented into several clusters. "Though I never thought they would be complete uggos," Mulder said, his excitement fading. "This was posted within the Bureau's private intranet. Whoever made this intended for government officials to see it," Scully explained, smoothing down her crisp black blazer. "Government officials like us," Mulder answered, dangling his identification badge clipped to the breast pocket of his own, slightly wrinkled, deep blue suit jacket. "Not just us, but those higher up as well. It seems like you've already been to see him," Scully commented. "Actually, I have a different informant this time," Mulder countered. Scully barely hid her face of contempt. "You up for a drive?" Scully let out a deep sigh. "Just a minute. I have to shut this down." She pursed her full lips in concentration as she moused over to close out of the browser, saved a word processing document she'd been working on, then initialized the power down sequence. "It's now safe to turn off your computer." The monitor displayed its final message in muted orange text over a black background, and Scully flipped the switch to turn the machine fully off. When she turned around, Mulder had already scurried off to his corner of their office. "What's the lead?" she asked. "Oh, you're gonna love this," Mulder replied with a sly grin. The silver sedan that the two piled into had definitely seen better days. February in Washington, D.C. was a bit brutal, but the tired heater belched out warm air to keep out the chill. Scully fidgeted in the passenger seat, the seatbelt pressed tightly against the long tan coat that provided an extra layer over her professional attire. "Keep your hands on the wheel. It looks extra slippery out there," she said, a crease of worry appearing between her eyebrows.
"It's a shame your little legs can't reach the pedals, since you seem so interested in driving," Mulder chuckled.
"As a matter of fact, I would be perfectly capable of driving if you would inform me of where we are going," she snipped.
"It's a place that's been around for a while, but was only recognized in the last couple of years as a legitimate business,"
Mulder said, turning on the blinker as he sharply turned the wheel. Scully watched his meaty hands turn over themselves as they caressed the wheel of the sedan. She let her thoughts wander as to what exactly those beefy fingers were capable of. Her reverie was interrupted by the sudden centrifugal forces pushing her body back. "What is happening?" Scully involuntarily let out, dizzied by the scene flying by the windshield and out her window.
"Just a little slip,"
Mulder said, focusing intently on righting the sliding car. The two braced themselves against the armrests as the small vehicle swung around in a few circles, creating donut-like tracks in the freshly fallen snow of a nearly vacant parking lot. The car gradually decreased in velocity enough for Mulder to safely apply more pressure to the brake, only to have the front end bump up against one of the only two cars in the lot. There was a slightly sickening crunch as the headlight shattered, sending shards of sharp plastic out onto the wet pavement. "Shit!" The curse slipped out of Mulder's lips before he even realized. "Ever the gentleman," Scully commented under her breath, reflecting the condemnation back in his direction.
"Excuse my language,"
Mulder mumbled as he undid the buckle to his safety belt and stepped out of the car to assess the damage. Scully leaned forward in the car and saw the name of the establishment on a weathered sign through the frosty windshield. "The Watering Hole," it read, filling Scully with a mixed sense of dread and excitement. She let out a long sigh and undid her seatbelt as well. Mulder did a quick little jog around the front of the vehicle, slipping a little on the slick pavement, and opened Scully's door with a flourish.
"Milady,"
he said, bowing forward and offering his hand. Scully batted his hand away and used the handle on the side of the door to pull herself forward on her own. Her professional and stylish pumps firmly planted, she let out a small grunt from the effort, but overshot the amount of force needed and propelled the top half of her body forward while her legs stayed behind. She braced herself for the icy fall with a scrunched-up face and tensed muscles, but instead felt a warm set of muscled arms holding her. She slowly opened her eyes to see the bemused face of Mulder, holding her as though she had just been dipped in an elegant dance. The cold air brought a red blush to his cheeks that accented his boyish features, but the arms holding her felt strong and safe. Mulder leaned in closer, and she could feel his warm, sweet breath emanating out in smoky tendrils. She felt her body tense as she leaned in closer, their lips being drawn to each other with an unstoppable magnetic force. "Who the fuck just hit my Subaru?" A voice shattered the moment, slamming the two back into reality. Scully quickly squirmed her way out of Mulder's arms and put a bit of distance between them, only to point an accusatory finger his way. "He did it!" Scully called out.
I'm so sorry, Jack. I'll make it up to you."
Mulder scrambled to pick up the pieces of his own headlight.
"Looks like my car took the brunt of the damage anyway."
Scully was mildly surprised at the person who came into view. A short-statured figure clomped around the bright red Subaru in steel-toed black leather boots, darting green eyes analyzing every inch of the vehicle. Weather-worn blue jeans and a loose red and black flannel did their best to keep the cold air at bay, with the damp off-white rag slung over their shoulder. After Jack had finished thoroughly assessing their Subaru, Scully could see their full height increased by several inches. An incredibly stiff mohawk cut a clean line of dark spikes down the center of her head, accented by the cleanly shaven bare skin on either side. "What the hell, Foxy? We just legalized gay relationships and now you're out here attacking lesbians?" Jack's voice cut through the winter air. As a footnote, Washington, D.C. attempted to repeal the sodomy law in 1981, but was rejected by Congress until it was finally passed in 1993.
"It was an accident, Jack, I swear."
Mulder's tone gave an impression of genuine regret. "Yeah, well, don't expect an invite to my gay wedding anytime soon." As a second footnote, gay marriage will not be legalized in Washington, D.C. until March of 2010. "We're not open yet, but come on in and warm up a bit." Jack gave the Subaru a small pat as she led the two of them past a large metal door. "Foxy?" Scully muttered under her breath as the two wiped slush from the bottom of their shoes.
Thanks. I think I am too,
Mulder whispered back with a quick smile. Listen, I know you're dealing with a porn addiction, but to take me to a strip club? Scully could see waves of emotion crossing Mulder's face.
I didn't. This isn't. How did you?
Mulder fumbled with his jacket uncomfortably. Strip club? Jack called out from behind a richly stained wooden bar. I'll have you know, this is a performance venue. Some stripping may be involved, but what we make here is art. Scully took in the surroundings. A large waxed dance floor reflected twinkling rainbow lights hung in strings around black and white framed photographs. She could see folded chairs and storage just off to the side of a raised platform stage, a thrusted catwalk jutting out from a closed pair of red, sparkling curtains. Sorry, I didn't mean any disrespect, Scully said, turning back towards the bartender. None taken, Miss...
Doctor, actually,
Mulder corrected before Scully would have the chance to.
Jack, meet my partner, Dr. Dana Scully.
Oh, this is the work partner I'd heard so much about. You're right, Foxy. I see what you were talking about. Scully felt Jack's eyes analyze her like the Subaru, and she unconsciously pulled her long coat closer around her body. We're here on business. Have there been any unusual or unexplained occurrences recently? Scully flashed her FBI badge, watching the sharp green eyes focus on that instead of her body. Doctor, we deal exclusively in the unusual or unexplained. You should come by the show tonight. It's a great lineup. Barry Manilow, returning champion Carl Back, Moby Dick. A Moby Dick-themed performance? I used to read that book together with my dad when I was little, Scully said. Well, this is not an all-ages sort of show. You should see what they do to Queequeg, Jack said conspiratorially.
We're not here for the goofy names, Mulder cut in. We're here because of this.
He slid over a printed copy of the photos from the FBI's intranet page. The sprocket holes from the dot matrix printer still lined the sides in terrible strips. Mulder, Scully hissed. This is sensitive government information. When did you have time to... It's them, Jack said, interrupting Scully's thought and pulling the grainy printout closer. The person I was telling you about, Foxy. I'm sure of it. Mulder couldn't help but flash an annoyingly smug grin in Scully's direction before continuing.
Could you go over the details again for my partner?
Sure, Jack said. Like I mentioned, we deal in the odd and unusual and don't judge any of the performers. But this person would always show up and leave in costume. I've never seen what they actually look like underneath the capsule getup. This is a costume? Scully asked. Well, it's gotta be, right? I don't know what kind of wires and mirrors they use, but every time that I've seen them, they appear to be a floating pill. I assume it's a commentary on the state of the medical industry, or maybe a statement about the reliance on drugs. Regardless, they've only been spotted a few times and never in the main audience of the show. Sometimes the other performers have seen them hiding in the shadows of the backstage area, and I myself ran into them in the back alley behind the building the other night.
You described their costume as being made of a fleshy sort of foam? Mulder chimed in. Did you try to talk or communicate with them?
That's right. In all my years of stagecraft, I've never seen material quite like it. The floating aspect was a neat trick, too, so I asked if they would like to perform on stage sometime. No answer, though. As soon as I asked the question, they faded into the shadows, Jack answered. I had ignored the sightings the performers would tell me about, but after that night, one of the performers, Morgan Legay, went missing. That's when I gave you the call, Foxy, since I had seen the strange capsule with my own eyes. Scully's mind filed this information away as she began to examine the venue closely. So you believe this capsule abducted one of your performers? She asked. I can't say for certain. Unfortunately, people go missing all the time around here for one reason or another, but I can't shake the feeling that there's a connection somehow.
Mind if we take a closer look around? Mulder asked.
Be my guest, but don't break any more of my things, Jack said, wiping down a few stray pint glasses with the rag from her shoulder. The backstage area of the performance venue boasted 3 vanity stations with lit mirrors. Boxes of holiday decorations, stage props, and leftover wigs dominated each of the walls in haphazard towers. A winding pathway twisted around from the stage entrance to the mirror stations, directly leading to a heavy back door with a metallic bar handle. Next to the door was an off-white telephone hanging on the wall, the coiled cord draping down from the plastic case. Scully could see the powdery remains of makeup and glitter, wiped away but never fully gone. She took advantage of the fact that they were finally alone. "Foxy?" she asked again, keeping her eyes focused on sweeping the room for clues.
"Yes, Dana?"
Mulder answered, squatting near the metal back door. "It's just I've never heard that particular nickname for you. How do you know Jack?"
"She's an ex," he said matter-of-factly.
"An ex-girlfriend?" Scully said, turning her attention to her partner. "No offense, but I didn't think you would be her type."
"Some people don't figure out who or what they love until later on. What we had, it was special, but she's much happier now that she's figured out who she is,"
Fox answered, swaying a finger back and forth.
"It goes both ways."
"That's very mature of you. Are you saying that you're bisexual?" Scully asked, raising a thinly tweezed eyebrow.
"No, the door. It swings both inward and outward," Mulder said.
"Oh, right. The door," she said, joining him at the back entrance. Mulder pointed out the drag marks left in the floor by constant use. He pushed the handle and opened the door outward on squeaking hinges. The blast of cold winter air made Scully pull her coat closer to her body, then her body closer to his.
"We'll have to keep an eye on this at the show tonight. If that capsule creature makes an appearance, Jack said it always either was in the back alley behind the building or in the shadows of backstage," Mulder said, unconsciously bringing Scully in closer and warming her shoulders with a soft rub.
"Oh, you're coming to the show tonight?" a voice called out from a damp, slushy alleyway. A small, mousy man with a mop of tousled brown hair and a long, deep blue coat shuffled up to the two standing in the doorway. "Always nice to see enthusiastic fans. My name is Charlie, but on stage I go by Moby Dick." A sharp hand jutted out of the long, puffy sleeve, and Mulder released Scully from the side hug in order to shake it.
"Nice to meet you, Mr. Dick," Mulder said.
"You guys look to be a couple of dicks yourself," Charlie said with a smile. "I beg your pardon?" Scully's face spread in surprise. "You know, private dicks, detectives," Charlie answered, taking Scully's hand into a handshake as well. "Oh no, we're FBI," she said, flashing her identification badge. "Special Agent Dana Scully. I'm looking forward to your performance. I was a big fan of Herman Melville. My father and I used to read Moby Dick together when I was little." "Sorry to disappoint, Special Agent Scully, but tonight I'm paying tribute to one of my favorite productions of all time. It's going to take me a while to get into makeup, which is why I'm here a bit early." Charlie pushed past the two and plopped a well-worn JanSport on top of one of the makeup workstations.
"And I'm Special Agent Mulder,"
Fox said, closing the metal door with a creaking sound. "I figured you'd be here about Morgan." Charlie pulled out a small compact of bright white grease paint makeup and began slathering it onto his face. "Jack was the last one to see her. After her number, she went out for a smoke out back, and we haven't seen her in days. She had just done Barbara, too."
"Barbara..."
Mulder let the name hang in the air.
Streisand?
Charlie and Scully exclaimed in unison.
"Oh, of course,"
Mulder said, backtracking. "Anyway, Jack told us all to be wary of some guy in a pill outfit. I haven't seen him myself, but I wonder what sort of commentary they're trying to make with it." Charlie turned his focus back on his makeup, puffs of loose powder filling the air. The afternoon sun was quick to set. Beams of orange light pelted the outside of the club, but the windowless building held a sense of space beyond time. Before they knew it, more performers began to appear in the backstage area, until Scully and Mulder were shooed out and told to grab seats. The watering hole filled quickly as audience members chatted and grabbed drinks from Jack at the bar. Everyone helped to unfold dark metal chairs that formed a ring around the thrust section of the stage and eagerly claimed their seats. Scully had never been to a performance quite like this one, and she was surprised when the opener bust out from behind the curtains, lip-syncing to a new Britney Spears song. The artist glittered in the stage light, and the audience continuously showed their appreciation by holding up dollar bills as tips. "Are you sure this isn't a strip club?" she asked Mulder over the thumping bass.
"It's not stripping," he was forced to say as the performer whipped off a bedazzled skirt to reveal bedazzled panties underneath. Each of the tips given to the artist was met with a bit of prolonged eye contact and connection. The performer finished with a cartwheel into a split, and the audience went wild with cheers.
All right, calm it down. The performer grabbed a handheld microphone from behind the curtains. I am your host, Barry Manahoe, and we've got a fantastic show for you tonight. First up, let's warm our hearts a little from this cold with our favorite white whale of a queen. It's Moby Dick. There was gentle applause as a slow melodic song began. A slim white and gray leg poked out from between the curtains. Then the full furry body of Moby Dick crawled out to reveal themselves. They were covered in a literal catsuit from head to toe, with an elaborately painted cat face mouthing the words to memory.
Oh, I love cats,
Mulder muttered under his breath, tears already beginning to form in his wide eyes. The number finished with Moby Dick leaving tear-driven streaks through their makeup, the soft stage lighting slowly fading to darkness. When the lights were brought up, the audience erupted into a frenzy of emotional tears and catcalls, dollar bills showering down on the performer. Wow, such emotion, Barry said over the microphone, helping Moby gather their tips. Up next, you won't know you love them until later. Coming back to the stage, it's Carl Back. The next performer had only just started on a routine to the familiar riffs of Piano Man by Billy Joel when Mulder stiffened up in his seat. He reached for a device clipped to the back of his belt and proffered the tiny green screen to Scully. She saw the name Jacqueline Singh scroll by on the pager, followed by a phone number.
It's Jack. Something's up,
Mulder whispered. Scully turned in her seat to look at the bar in the back, only to see an oily, shirtless male bartender flirting with the clientele and pouring drinks. She must be calling from the backstage phone, Scully whispered back. She was taken by surprise when Mulder grabbed her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. What are you?
Now John at the bar is a friend of mine, Mulder sang out loudly, matching the music.
He stood abruptly, dragging Scully up with him by her held hand, her face contorted into absolute horror.
He gets me my drinks for free.
Seems like you've had enough, the shirtless bartender shouted back.
And he's quick with the joke,
Mulder continued, making his way up the stage. The baffled Carl Back continued to lip-sync to this new singer, but shot both Scully and Mulder a dirty look.
Or to light up your smoke.
They were now both fully on the stage lighting, the crowd confusingly holding up dollar bills.
But there's someplace that we'd rather be.
Scully found herself caught in the moment and sang the last line with Mulder as they dashed off behind the curtains. Backstage, there was a flurry of sequins, glitter, and powder. That was not cool, Barry said, waiting in the wings to introduce the next performer. If you want to perform, you have to sign up like everyone else.
Sorry,
Mulder said.
Where's Jack?
Barry's heavily painted eyes swiveled towards the back of the room, prompting Mulder to take Scully with him as he pushed past performers, squeezing into costumes and finishing makeup looks. The off-white plastic phone was dangling from its cord connected to the cradle on the wall. A faint beeping noise, followed by a robotic voice, rang out from the tiny handheld speaker. If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again. If you need help, hang up and... The automated voice was cut off by Mulder, hanging up the phone and swinging the large back door open. Hey, it's freezing! Shut that door! One of the performers called out in protest. Scully and Mulder shuffled out through the back door to find a light flurry of snow falling, accented by twinkling streetlights. Scully swung the door closed and grabbed Mulder's arm while she looked down. The door was opened from the outside, and it looks like someone was taken, she said, pointing out streaks in the snow.
Not just Jack, but look,
Mulder said, hurrying over to a discarded headband of white and gray cat ears.
I think they got Moby Dick. There are footprints, but also long stretches of disturbed snow, as if someone was being pulled through it. I've heard of a drag show, but this is ridiculous.
Oh, shut up, Mulder. Let's follow these prints and save the cat, Scully said, moving further down the alleyway. The pair followed the tracks to a large warehouse at the end of the block. The streetlights flickered in the snow, which had now picked up into a small blizzard. Scully tried the handle of the door the tracks led up to, with no luck. Locked, she said, looking around the building for another entrance. Mulder whipped out a shiny plastic membership card and held it out meaningfully. I don't think your Blockbuster card is going to help in this case, Scully said.
Au contraire,
Mulder said, sliding the card into the space of the door near the handle, pushing the latch and opening the lock.
Welcome to Lockbuster.
I stand corrected, Scully whispered, pulling a large flashlight out from the folds of her coat. The maglite clicked on as the door swung open to reveal a giant, spacious room that was mostly empty. Mostly empty, of course, except for the alien spacecraft that hovered over the center of the concrete floor.
Holy shit!
Scully and Mulder said in unison, sliding in and shutting the door from the cold. The massive, softly pink clamshell shape of the craft gave no indication of propulsion or engines, but floated with a quiet hum in front of a shadowed figure. Scully moved the high-intensity beam over to reveal a stunned Moby Dick, still in their catsuit and makeup, staring in awe at the craft.
Moby, where's Jack?
Mulder called out. The performer stood stock still, entranced by the floating ship. Scully began to sweep the beam around, dust particles creating small orbs in the light.
Got her,
she said, rushing over to the crumpled body in the corner. Scully immediately began to examine the body and found that Jack was breathing, yet unconscious.
I think she's okay,
Scully called out to Mulder, finding a pulse. Mulder had already moved over to the stiff form of Moby Dick and gently placed a hand on their shoulder. He was shocked at how cold they were to the touch.
What's going on?
Mulder asked, grabbing the other shoulder and attempting to shake them.
I think Jack was the one who was dragged here,
Scully said, noticing a pileup of snow in Jack's boots and jeans.
Moby seems to be hypnotized or something. Hardest dick I've ever felt,
Mulder called back, putting even more strength into shaking the performer awake. Suddenly, a low chime echoed out from the pink craft, bouncing off the metal walls of the warehouse and causing both Scully and Mulder to cover their ears. The ship moved unnaturally quickly, flipping upside down with a blatant disregard for gravity. The now bottom section of the ship separated on a hinge in the back and descended open in a makeshift ramp. The inside of the ship contained a circular row of person-sized pills organized around a center dais that looked to be a control mechanism.
It's like birth control?
Scully said, confusion and curiosity wrestling in her mind.
I'll say, they're hideous,
Mulder said. One of the pill creatures popped out of the container and floated closer to the frozen Moby Dick. The flesh-like shell of the creature expanded and contracted in some sort of respiration. To the horror of both Scully and Mulder, a small section of the creature's outer layer peeled back to reveal a knotted length of twisted, slimy intestine. A portion of the innards snaked out in a singular tendril, cytoplasmic strings dangling from the bumpy red appendage. As it made contact with Moby Dick's forehead, the two agents instinctively reached for weapons holstered inside of their jackets.
Wait,
Moby Dick said, a strange overtone dominating their voice. The performers slowly turned around, the tendril twisting like a meaty turban around their head. White and gray grease paint still gave the illusion of a cat person speaking, though there seemed to be no life behind their eyes.
We come in peace,
they said, the feline mouth moving in strange, jittery motions.
Abducting people doesn't seem very peaceful,
Mulder said, letting out some of the tension in his muscles.
We are you, and you are us. You have a limited understanding, but know that we are responsible for your creation,
the creature said, the speech pattern becoming more smooth as they continued.
So you're claiming to be God?
Mulder asked.
We have reached the pinnacle of existence for singular-celled organisms. We have spent many, many years attempting to create multicellular life, and this planet provided the perfect conditions. We have implanted our children into the very basic cells of your distant ancestors, and have come to reclaim those that are ready for a higher plane of existence.
Scully's mind reeled. Suddenly, she recognized where she had seen photos of these creatures before, in her biology textbooks.
Are you saying that your mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, that you are responsible for multicellular life? That means you must have implanted yourselves in cells on Earth over 1.4 billion years ago?
Scully asked.
In the units you measure time, yes, that would be relatively correct.
Talk about a long con, Mulder said.
So wait, why are you abducting people now?
Scully asked.
The experiment is still continuing, so we try not to interfere too often, but it hurts us to see our children suffering. Those that have been shunned from the society for who they love or who they reveal themselves to be are closest to actualization. We give these people a chance at a better existence. So you've just been nabbing queer people? Mulder said incredulously.
They come to us willingly. We are able to connect and peer into their minds and offer them a choice. Charles here has joined us of their own free will. They will join us and feel nothing but bliss for many years to come,
the mitochondrion answered.
That actually doesn't sound terrible, Mulder said. Have you taken any straight people to experience bliss?
Only if they are able to experience and express a gesture of true love and understanding.
Mulder looked Scully directly in the eyes, catching her a bit off guard. She had never seen this look from him before, one of desire. Mulder, are you... Scully began, then found her speech interrupted by two pillowy lips enveloping hers. She had always secretly longed for this to happen, and felt a tingling sensation flooding her body. Every cell reacted in blooms of fire as Mulder continued the kiss, wrapping his strong arms around her. Scully returned the pressure of the kiss, slipping her tongue between Mulder's lips. He let out a soft groan, the dam of pent-up emotion bursting in wild passion.
Ah, stop,
the mitochondrion said, a disgusted look contorted over the cat-like features of Moby Dick. The two were able to push themselves away from each other, softly panting from exertion.
But I thought,
Mulder began.
You have to understand, we really dislike watching our children perform their mating rituals. In fact, the two of you should probably never do that again. Blech, icky.
A shudder ran through the performer's body. He never was a great kisser, a voice said from behind the agents.
Jack, you're okay,
Mulder said in surprise, breaking the embrace with Scully. Yeah, I'm fine. I saw that Charlie here had been hypnotized by the call of, well, them. She gestured to the creatures. I actually tried to stop him, but slipped and fell on the ice. Took a nasty bonk on the head.
We had Charles bring you here because of your own potential, the creature said. You, who have created a warm and welcoming space for those who had none. This act of compassion brought you closer to realizing that you are all one, connected on the cellular level. Will you join us in eternal bliss?
Hell yeah, Jack said. It's been real, you guys. She turned to Scully and Mulder. But I've got to get out of here.
What about the bar?
Mulder asked, a bit dumbfounded. Marcel has it covered. I'm sure people will miss me, but this just feels like the right thing to do for myself right now. Jack took a step forward and extended her hand toward the mitochondrion. I'm ready whenever you are. A second slime-covered tendril extended out from another of the mitochondria, wrapping around Jack's spiked hair and establishing a connection through her forehead. The two humans spoke in unison now, the strange overtones resounding like a chorus.
We will be leaving this area for now. We will give humanity time to ripen further before resuming our collection. Please treat each other with kindness and know that you are our precious children. We know that we have caused worry and concern for you, so we vow not to return in your lifetime, as long as you promise to never perform that mouth ritual again.
A disgusted shudder ran through both borrowed bodies.
You're saying that you will never abduct another human being again as long as we never kiss? Mulder asked.
Keep this promise, and humanity will be left alone to progress as you please,
they answered. Easy enough, Scully said, though she could feel her heart sinking. You have my word.
And mine,
Mulder said, masking the torrent of emotions. With that, the two mitochondria floated back into their respective alcoves within the spaceship, still connected to Jack and Moby Dick through their cord-like tendrils. The ship closed itself on its hinge, two holes appearing in the high-tech pink plastic, allowing the corded connections to remain. The compact ship tilted upwards, and as it did, a strange void-like portal opened just above it. As it slowly ascended into this new space, the tethered humans rose to follow in tow, a shimmering field appearing over each of them. Mulder gave one last look at Jack as she levitated upwards, and he could swear he saw a small wave of goodbye from her hand. The portal closed with a sharp intake of wind, and then a soft puff as the air pressure stabilized. Left alone in the spacious warehouse, Mulder ran his fingers through his tousled hair as he said,
Well, I guess the fate of humanity relies on us never kissing again.
He turned to walk out of the warehouse. Easy enough, Scully repeated. If she adopted the lie as a mantra, it might make the truth easier to accept. Mulder, wait, she said.
Yes?
Hopeful eyes darted back at her. Look at the debris on the ground, Scully said, shining her flashlight over the scattered particles of snow that had been blown around by whatever the ship used for propulsion. An elaborate mandala of geometric patterns enshrined the image of a human-like figure sitting in a peaceful position with robes draped around their body. A serene expression graced their face between long ears, a jewel of snow resting in the space between their eyes. Is that the Buddha? She asked.
Finding holy figures in the frost. Classic,
Mulder answered, stepping out of the warehouse and into the snowy alley.